Hey, Eden, I have a question.
Yes.
I have
Hi,
many
Dee.
questions. All right. So, have companies been sort of shifting their marketing strategies, you think, 2025? Or is it just the same as the last 5 years?
Have companies been shifting their
Yeah.
marketing strategies? They
Are they
should be.
focusing on new things?
They should be.
Yeah.
A lot are not, some are. So one thing that is really important to implement into marketing strategies moving forward is
Right.
generative AI.
Uh-huh.
Or even using AI in building your campaigns. And I know that sounds terrible. People are like, oh my gosh, that's so unauthentic. But if you're a good marketer, it's the prompts that you put in, garbage out, you put in good
Yep.
prompts, you get better results and quicker results. So you're able to do more with marketing using generative AI or like learning tools that understand what your customers are doing or listening tools. So you can grab more than, your marketing team can sit and listen to. So are the strategies changing? Some of them are not, unfortunately. So they're not going to keep up. The ones that are going to be worlds ahead very quickly.
All right. I like that answer. Some people are not going to like that answer, but I like that answer.
It's not a replacement of,
No.
it's in addition to. It's an and.
Okay, so let's talk about this then. You're. I mean, you're working with a lot of clients. You're talking to a lot of companies that may or may not become clients, right? The economy has been kind of up and down and weird for a lot of places in the last few years. Like, how has that been influencing marketing budgets, or even marketing priorities for in the companies that you're talking to?
Well, as every or any CMO knows, or marketing director or consultant, everybody's
Right.
like, I want this. My budget is this.
Yeah.
And in years past, you're like, sorry, I can't get you in the Wall Street Journal for this. But thankfully, that is not the path we take today. So what I'm seeing with companies as marketing budgets decrease, which they have been, I feel like my entire lifetime, is there's new channels to be able to reach markets without spending a ton. So, for example, I have a real estate client, they do disposition sales, big foreclosure sales. There's not a ton of money behind it, but they want to get it to the mass market as if they did have a ton of money behind it. So, one of the, like, a strategy that I'm taking on, which sounds a little tedious and silly, is I join, say they're trying to dispose of a hotel.
Right.
So I join all of the hotel groups on Facebook, and there's probably about 30 of them. Join, 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 join.
Hmm.
And I start engaging or interacting. And by the way, that's where you have the generative AI,
Hmm.
is where you can start posting and talk about these disposition sales or what the benefit of buying this property is, and start having conversations instead of just pushing out advertising. So it's more of like short or bite-sized content, as I like to say, in a real forum with real investors that are engaged. I mean, you also do your LinkedIn ads, and if you can afford your Wall Street Journal, you put it
Sure.
there as well. But with the smaller budgets, if you can only go one way, that's just a way that you can maximize the smaller dollars that you're seeing. There's also a lot of value in partnerships, or there's a lot of value in your reputation as a company. So ensuring that you're out there, again, back to engaging, making um, content, a lot of video content. We've talked before in the past, Dean, about TikTok, right?
Yeah.
So finding content that you could put out in small pieces and broadcasting it to the masses where they are. So that's how, as a marketing consultant, as a CMO, you can work with these smaller budgets. You can't achieve the impossible, but you can make things possible that never were before.
Fair enough. Okay, so um, I've got a couple of questions about marketers finding companies and companies finding marketers. Let's start with the companies finding marketers. Like, what uh, in a lot of your clients, right, and a lot of people, your companies you're talking to, they're changing the sort of composition of their marketing teams. Some of them are downsizing their marketing teams, and some of them are, expanding their marketing teams or building their first ever marketing team. Um, what kind of challenges are companies, you think, facing today as they go looking for great marketing people?
Well,
There are a lot of them looking for work. So
So there's a lot of companies looking for marketers and marketers looking for companies, but a lot of people or a lot of fractional CMOs, marketing consultants, put themselves out there as marketing experts, and companies hire them and they don't achieve the bottom line, or me, when I'm out looking for clients, I'm looking for a certain type of company that values what I can deliver, which is bottom line results.
Right.
So I think finding the right marketer is not easy. I've actually joined social networking groups where there's people self-proclaimed marketers, and I don't even know what they're doing, and companies hire them, and I see this haphazard website put together, and there's no
Mm-hmm.
strategy, and they're like, "Oh, you need to change your logo, you need to change your value, your tagline, your value prop." No, you don't. All of that is important. I think when companies look for marketers, they should give them a problem or something that they're facing or that they're faced with. And I think that part of the interview process is that the marketer should give them a solution. I have 4 product lines. This one is doing this, this one's doing that. I want this one that's not successful to rise above. A good marketer will
Yeah.
take a look at what's given and they'll say, okay, so you have this product that's here and a product that's there. Nobody seems to like this product. What's the issue? What problem does it solve? Not what
Right.
are you trying to sell? And if this one's doing so well, why don't we just push this up? And this
Yeah.
could probably save your company. So I think that when companies are looking for marketers, they should look for somebody with a business acumen, not somebody that's going to put sprinkles on a cake that is not even cooked. So I think I know that's a weird analogy,
I've never heard that phrase, and I kind of love it.
but I honestly
I
think
love
that
that.
these companies have cakes, right?
Yeah.
And marketers, there's a lot of marketers that are just hired to put the sprinkles on. That's your logo and to make everything look pretty.
Mhm.
There's some that are there for the icing to, enhance the product line, but there's some that really take a look at the cake and try to see if that's the flavor that people are looking for.
Okay, so
Did I answer
um,
that right? I mean, that's how they
yes,
find their marketers,
yeah.
how marketers find.
Essentially, the problem was, I think there are. I don't normally add to people's answers, but uh, the
Please do.
challenge you said a lot of companies have is that there's a lot of like title inflation. I'm going to be very
Yes.
polite. I'm not saying that people are lying, right, on their qualifications. I'm just saying there's a lot of people who've never been like a CMO saying that they're a CMO kind of thing, right?
Oh,
And I
yes.
imagine the other, like, that's what you talked about. And then I imagine that the other challenge is that I bet right now you can't like socialize or post any kind of marketing job without 400 people rushing in the first 24 hours.
Absolutely. And how do you sort through that?
I don't know. I've never had to hire anyone at that scale, so I can imagine what it's like.
Yeah,
Or,
I would yeah, I would actually I would pose the problems to the marketing directors and ask, here's my goal. And a good marketer might say, well, why is that your goal? Why this? Why not that? And I think that's how they would screen for a marketer
Mhm.
that's going to help them increase their bottom line. And listen, a lot of marketers, there's a lot of title inflation because what do they do for a living? They market.
Yeah,
And the hardest thing you could ever do is market yourself. So kudos to them if they're
yeah,
that good to
yeah.
put themselves in that position. But
I
yes,
have been involved in with clients who are helping them hire salespeople, and salespeople might be the very hardest people to hire because they're all pretty good at selling themselves.
yes,
It's hard to know, right, who's going to like sort of get traction in the role. Okay,
absolutely.
so there's essentially, I think, maybe like 3 or maybe even 4 ways that let's talk about fractional CMOs for a second. 3 or 4 ways that fractional CMOs or almost any sort of independent services professional out on their own build a client base or expand the client base, right? Some of them, they're just networking people. They belong to every group. They're on all these like group Zoom calls. They go to Chamber of Commerce if that's still a thing. They go to, whatever, right? And most people sort of start there. And some people are very good at that. They just like, they're okay with the grind of doing that. And then some people, for whatever reason, either they systematically built it or it's just the kind of like who they are. They get mentioned in conversations where they're not part of the conversation, right? That's the whole referral base. Like, I know someone you should talk to, right? You should talk to Eden, right? And then some people sort of build like a quasi automated process for outreach to do it. And then, I mean, there's probably a fourth type, right? But like, where do you fall on that? And how did you think you ended? How do you think you ended up in that category?
So I've been fortunate. All of my clients have always been referral based,
Okay.
and I am a master networker. But if I do network, I'm not out to get something.
Mm-hmm.
My job is always to give and provide. I offer a lot of free advice. If I go to a networking event, my goal is not to, oh, I hope I'm going to get some clients out of this, because usually where I'm at, those aren't the clients I want anyway. But it's just talking about their business and understanding it and offering. It's the power of free. Just offer something that you can
Yeah.
add value to their business without expecting anything in return. So if I found clients that way, but honestly, all of my clients throughout my entire career have all been referrals. I have never went out and pitched. And if I did, I'd probably be terrible at it. And I'd probably be attracting the wrong type of clients, because when I pitch personally, I don't pitch. I just offer free advice. So if it comes to me, great. If not, or I'll say, hey, you know what? I have 3 clients. I am looking for one more, and I'll give that to who I work with. I have about maybe 8 hours a week to contribute. If you know of anybody, great. And this is going to sound ridiculous too. The universe kind of conspires, and I always wind up with the right fit for me. And if I don't accept that client. I don't do mass networking. I don't want
Right.
mass clients, and I don't want the wrong clients. I will work just as hard for a client that will pay $1,000 a month that will pay me $10,000 a month. So I have to be very picky and very selective. And I don't go out looking for clients. If that sounds bad, I don't know.
I remember the fourth type actually. Oh, oh, a lot of various types of, especially fractional executives, the finance folks, the COOs, the CMOs, they'll join some sort of collective company. So that's sort of the fourth way, right? Kind of like the Remax model, where you're under an umbrella and marketing and maybe even lead gen is done for you. And in exchange for a cut of your billing, like that sort of like time intensive work is taken away and done by someone else. And so I think probably for every kind of fractional executive these days, there's at least 2 or more collective companies, right? If you're
Oh,
a fractional COO, then there's Catapult and there's Wolf's Edge and a few others. If you're CMO, then there's Chief Outsiders. Full disclosure, I write and do positioning and branding messaging for Chief Outsiders for like several projects now this year. So and then, but there's CMOX and there's YOR or your CMO, right? And so, like a lot of fractional executives, this is how they find clients now: is they sort of outsource or insource part of the more time intensive, you know, grind of finding clients in exchange for like a shared revenue model. That would be the fourth way that I forgot to mention, I guess.
so it's interesting. I can't even tell you how many emails I get.
I'm
I
sure.
came across your website. You're a fantastic marketer.
Yeah.
Let me bring you leads. I'm like, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
No. Another way, actually, I do have a way that marketers
Oh,
that are decent and are looking for a gig is to go look for a full-time job
right.
that is probably way below their pay range,
Right.
but to engage with that company as well, saying, listen, I can do everything you're asking. I can do it for what you're paying, but it's only going to take me 8 to 10
Yeah.
hours a week. Some people run a marathon in 2 hours, some do it in 7. I do it in an hour. So you're going to get the expertise of, 20 years of experience. You're going to get the education. You're going to get, my entire team, and you're going to get it at a fraction. So I guess that would be another way.
Yeah.
If I were if I were in that position where I was really needing another client and the universe did not conspire that month or year, whatever, that would probably be the way I would go about it.
Okay. I have. Let's go back to the companies now because I'm interested in the companies. Um, has your work? You're probably remote, right?
I am.
So how has remote changed the way like marketing teams are operating these days? Because like most, like maybe not most, but well, probably most, right? People in marketing would prefer to be remote at least a good part of their work week, right? Has remote changed at all, or was marketing already sort of suited to that?
I Mine was always suited to that because
Yeah.
I ran my company for so long, and I honestly do not retain full-time employees. I mean, I'm a fractional
Mhm.
CMO, so I also engage a web consultant, a design consultant,
Yeah.
and because I give them business, obviously I get their attention right away. If you don't, if you're just hiring off Upwork or Fiverr, it's going to be a lot harder. I think the key to working remote and managing a team, if you are putting together projects, is your leadership style, the way you communicate. I work with ClickUp, right? So this is do
Mhm.
this day. Text, hey, did you see blah blah blah? Or, I've become a very good communicator. And if I'm not a good communicator, I ask for feedback of how we can work better together. The one thing that is difficult with marketing, as with probably any fractional position or any remote position, is when someone starts emailing you, I need this change. And then you get another email, and I need this change. And then I need this change. And it's all, a ton of emails coming in versus communicating is grabbing them all, making sure your client has related all of their changes, and then it
Yeah.
saves them money as well, but being able to communicate with your contractors effectively and through methods that work for both of you, and it may be different. So working remotely with clients and then working remotely with the consultants that I have to hire to fulfill the client's needs, it's a challenge. But the one thing I do miss is the face-to-face contact. I think
Yeah.
that you do miss a lot of the why behind what they want when you're not meeting face to face. You can't dig as deep. It's become like order taking versus problem solving.
Right. All right. And then let's like expand on that maybe a little bit. So you're talking to a lot of companies, you're working with a lot of companies. Like what are like are the common mistakes that companies are making with their marketing today the same mistakes they were making 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or are there new mistakes?
Oh, there's always new mistakes.
Yeah.
There's a new mistake every day. um, I think the biggest mistake you will always find with a company is I want this and this is how I want you to do it. It's just common. It's
Right.
never changed. Even now, it's like um, I want to go viral, right? I'm like, okay, but what's your goal? I want
Yeah.
this. I want to implement um, AI. Why? So I think the biggest problems that we're always going to see and we've always seen is they hire experts to get them to where they want to go and then they tell them how to do it. And
Yeah.
that might not be the way to get the results that they want. So the mistakes are the same. The requests have just changed. It's the how. Before it was like, I want to get an article written about me, right?
Right.
Now it's, I want to go
I
viral.
want to be profiled in the Wall Street Journal. I want
Yes, that was back in the day. And now it's,
to.
I want to be an influencer.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you offer? What problem are you
Yeah.
solving? So I think that's the same mistakes. It's the same mistakes, just framed differently.
Do any of your clients do what we would now call like traditional marketing and traditional media like TV or radio or print? And if so, what's going on there? And if not, why do you think, what does that say about marketing in 2025 that traditional communication channels are kind of not a focus?
Some want it, and it's just
Yeah.
because it's been imprinted in their brain, right? Like we just said the Wall Street Journal. I want to be in the Wall Street Journal. If I'm in the Wall Street Journal, that means that I'm important.
Hmm.
Problem is what eyes are on the Wall Street Journal. And there are still a lot. It's still very important. People subscribe to it digitally, but they want to be in the print version. I'm like, okay, why? Um, yes, but it's different. So instead of saying I want to be on, I mean, out here it's like B96. I want to be on B96. Right now it's I want, they want to be on some of the streaming channels like what is it, Pandora or
Right.
Yes, and I don't always think it's the best way to go, but it depends on who they are. Are they marketing to senior citizens? Then yes, if you want to be on Fox News and you want to run a TV spot and your target market is 85 years old, okay, maybe you're not wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, some people are. It all depends on what, why, and the problem that's being solved and who you're targeting. So there is still traditional use out there. It's still very effective, but it depends on what the product is and what the goals are and who the target market is.
So is there okay, that's excellent. So then let's build on that, right? Is there anything, any strategy, any communication channel, any approach that's sort of underrated these days?
Well, what I was mentioning earlier is joining a bunch of Facebook
Yeah.
groups and being authentically engaged. I think
Right.
that's underrated. I think starting, micro communities of your own. When I don't work with, but I support a lot of, small business owners that where they're marketing themselves. And I think what's really underrated is being authentically engaged. People are trying to advertise, people are trying to push out um, just ads. But what they really should be doing is educating,
Right.
because when you position yourself in these communities online, you were mentioning TikTok. I unfortunately am not as engaged on that platform and I should be. So shame on me. But as you do that, you're able to reach people that you typically can't through traditional media or just pushing out ads. And it's highly effective. I had a one of my clients was a huge pickleball tour, and they had their advertising done. They did direct mail. They were advertising on radio. They were posting their event on
Hmm.
EVVNT, but the way they got people to their pickleball tour is by joining all of the pickleball communities in the area and posting the event online and talking to the administrator of the pages. And that was, I mean, they brought their attendance, they doubled it just by doing something that was free. It just took time.
Yeah. Um, um, I have a lot to say, and but the podcast's not about me. And
No, please,
I,
I
I
contribute. I
will,
like
I
conversation.
will,
I like
I
learning
will
too.
say though, no, like you don't know, and I mean, you've been at the top of enough marketing organizations and been involved in enough marketing campaigns to know that you kind of make a bunch of small bets and then see what hits, right? And so it was very surprising that this podcast, which only started airing episodes on January 8th of 2024, that by the same date in September, 20 like 8 months later, right? And 9 months, uh, was already breaching like 100,000 views for a fractional CMO podcast. Right? No, I would never have predicted, and yet, here we are, where TikTok alone is 55 to 60% of all views of this podcast in any given day, whereas the long form, virtually nobody watches it. You know, and even YouTube Shorts, very very tiny percentage, like 9 to 13%. At a peak. So yeah, I would have expected YouTube Shorts number one, LinkedIn number two, YouTube regular number three, and then everything else like a distant fourth. And it turns out it was completely lopsided and upside down. You don't know. You make a bunch of small bets, and then you see what hits, I guess.
So as a marketer, I'm always learning.
Oh,
And
yeah,
right now, I mean, you sharing that, it's important because it makes you stop and think. When people are looking for podcasts or they're on LinkedIn, what are they doing? Right? So are
yeah,
they going to sit and listen? But when they're scrolling through TikTok, and as you said, bite-sized pieces or snack-sized content is the thing right now. And as they're scrolling, this comes up and they're engaged because it's being served up and people aren't searching for it. So I think it's actually brilliant. And if I learned one thing today, Dean, outside of doing a podcast is brilliant, which we spoke about
a
several
hundred episodes ago when you were last here. Yeah,
episodes back. I'm like, you're the most brilliant marketer because as a pod, creating a podcast, by the way, that also is a brilliant marketing
yeah,
strategy for today, because how else do you get in front of the people you want to work with?
yeah.
They're busy. they don't want to take your sales call. But there's a power in the ego, and people want to talk about themselves. So you're one of the most brilliant marketers I know, right? You're a
I,
copywriter. So
I sought out two different. I asked friends. I didn't know anyone who really had been in the podcast game at the end of 2023 when I first got the idea. Kind of stumbled on it, and I said, "Can you like direct me to?" And I said, "I don't want someone who did like 10 podcasts and then stop. Like people who've been at this a long time. Can you put me in touch with them?" And talking about like getting and connecting with the people that you want to like get to know. They both gave me the same advice, which was, Dean, no matter what, make sure that you've got 8 or 10 episodes recorded before you start releasing anyone. You don't want to be scrambling at the last minute to get a guest that week, right? They clearly never talk to marketers, because I would have a harder time keeping marketers away from a microphone than getting them in front of a microphone. All right. I've had 30 people in a queue from day one. Right now, on any given day, there are 75 people scheduled with like days and times when they're going to be on record an episode of this thing. So that turned out to be like, again, a surprise and really easy. I didn't have to work very hard on that. I'll be honest with you. I will say around TikTok, you don't know what's going to hit until it hits. I have a 20-year-old daughter in entertainment and a college student who has a TikTok account, and my view count dwarfs hers. And you can imagine how chagrined she is that, you know, someone in the entertainment business has a tiny TikTok channel compared to mine.
well, first of all, you're offering valuable content,
Yeah.
right? So you don't know who you might be hitting CEOs, you might be hitting students that are going to become marketers,
Yeah.
you might be hitting small businesses. So now you're getting advice from fractional CMOs. So that's a win there, right? So you're there. Two, you're doing a podcast. So the best marketing ever,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I actually suggested for one of my clients, I'm like, you're trying to sell, you're trying to do M&A. How are you going to get in front of these people? Sending endless emails, postcards,
Yeah.
adding content, that's not going to do anything. But inviting them to talk on your podcast, you can learn about what's important to them, what their pain points are and how you can solve them. And then you're able to sell to them. So Dean, I mean, outside of the TikTok win that you have, the podcast win is big too. And most people are like, oh, there's too many podcasts out there. I don't want to start, or everyone's going to make fun of me. I don't want to be on a podcast.
There's a million podcasts right now. A million.
But there's a million websites and people still
Oh, yeah.
create them. So, there's a million businesses and people still create them. So, I mean, as a copywriter slash marketeer, I would say that you're winning the marketing game and getting in front of the industry. And I'm sure it was just, an odd chance of TikTok because you're testing different things.
Yeah.
And wow, there you go.
Yeah. I knew that I had sort of like hit an inflection point about a month ago when someone connected with me on LinkedIn and says, "Hey, we've never met, but I know so-and-so, and I was in this group." And they said, "If you're going to try to meet anybody, you need to talk to Dean Way." And I say, "Okay, that feels weird." They were fractional CMO. That feels weird. And yet I kind of get it. Right. I am kind of like all over the place. Okay. One last question.
Yes.
What are you most excited about right now and the sort of the future of marketing?
Well, outside of ChatGPT and all the generative AI and I think I'm most excited to see how people will use it effectively to grow their bottom line. I'm watching and learning. So I think I'm most excited to learn.
Yeah.
I listen, once you stop learning, you stop growing. And
Mm.
a lot of marketers out there do think they know it all and they're, rewind play for years and years and years. So I think I'm most excited to see how people are going to use AI to up the game, because what worked last year or what worked for a
Right.
specific product probably won't work next. There's no playbook anymore. So I'm just interested in learning.
That's the quote of this entire podcast. There's no playbook anymore. You watch. That's going to get the one that's pulled out.
Yeah, I'm just learning. So what I'm looking forward to is learning new things and winning. Like I always want to be super successful for whatever client I have. So I can't wait to figure that out because today's probably different than yesterday.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. It's so good to see you again. 100 episode difference. I don't know if there will be an episode 217 or two. Yeah. But if there is, you should come back. Definitely maybe before that. Yeah. but it was this was I really enjoyed this. I love this format. I really like this. You did great. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having me. I
See
appreciate
you.
it.
Bye. See
Thanks.
everyone.